Welcome all to the first of these MUV601 Roundups. The idea is to attempt to post one of these each week, covering some of the aspects that we covered on Thursday, for those that may have been a little bit confused by some of the issues that we talked about, or for those who may have missed out on a few things, as you can do. There's a lot of information coming through in a very short space of time. I'm standing on the parcel at the moment, our piece of land, and looking over the far side where we were sitting, and as you can see, can't see any trees there at the moment. The reason for that is that I've got my draw distance set at 64 metres and I'm standing more than 64 metres away from that far corner. So how do we change that? Control P will bring up preferences, and under the graphics tab at the top right you can see draw distance. If you're not seeing these different areas here, you need to click on the advanced tab to bring them up. At the moment our draw distance is 64 metres, and that means that everything within 64 linden metres of my avatar is being drawn by my computer, or by the game for my computer. At the moment we're seeing very little, just the sign over in the far side. If I move that up a little bit, up to 120 metres, the trees and the bushes and that now come into view. Remembering of course that the higher you have this, the more data has to be downloaded to your computer, so there's a greater possibility of lag. So if possible, keep it down at 64. If you are getting lag issues, go and look at draw distance as one of the possibilities. Click on OK obviously to set that in place. Next we'll look at the camera. Pressing down on the Alt key brings up a little magnifying glass there, and if I then click on the large tree, you can see how that tree comes into the centre of my screen. So holding down the Alt key and clicking brings the centre point as my main focus. With my mouse now, because I've got a scroll wheel on it, if I just scroll forward and back, I'll be scrolling into that centre point. If I want to bring my camera back to my avatar or back to behind my avatar, I can use the escape key, and that'll bring it back to the default position behind my avatar. So let's see what else we can do with the Alt key. Clicking once, now I'm keeping the Alt key down, and now I'm holding down my left mouse and using it to zoom. What I can also do is rotate from left to right with the mouse just by moving the mouse sideways. If I want to rotate up and down and left and right, I've got to hold down the control key as well. So I'm now holding down the Alt key, the control key and my left mouse, and I've got a rotation that I can take in all directions. I can even go right around the other side of the tree if I want to. If I hold down the Shift key, and as you can see the cursor changes, it's now allowing me to pan left and right and up and down. Take my finger off the Shift key, Alt key and just the control key, and you can see the little rotate icon, and then I have rotate. Press the escape key and I'm back to my avatar again. Okay, let's look at movement now. We can use the W, A, S and D keys for movement if we wish. W going forward, A to the left, D to the right, and S to move backwards. Or we can use the arrow keys. Forward arrow, left arrow, right arrow, and back arrow. The other thing we can do here obviously is, as you saw last week, is in fly. So we can use the home key, that will get us up into a hover state, and we can use page up, page down, W, A, D, and S to fly backwards if we want to. Page down. And as soon as we hit the ground, the stop flying button will turn off. A few other things that were intended but weren't specifically mentioned. Let's have a look at this ball here. This is a programmed ball that I've set up to welcome you. As you can see, it's got floating text that hovers above it. One of the things you can program inside Second Life. It also has sparkles on it. That's another thing you can program that's using a particle system, which is usually used for things like fire, sparkles, lights, etc. If you have a look over at this plinth here, a little swirly smoke, it's again a particle system that's been programmed into it. This particular plinth is the class dispenser, so generally you'll have items for the class inside this dispenser, and if you click on it, it'll give you those items. You see when I hold the cursor over, a little hand shows up. Hand means you can click on something, and usually it'll give you something, or something will happen, a door will open, etc. If you have a look at the balls here, these are the balls we were sitting on. Hold the cursor over, there's a little hand with a chair comes on. That means you click on it, it will generally sit you. Basically means it's going to animate you when you click on something. The code is to sit on, but it really depends on what the animation inside is that's going to happen. So if I open up this particular item, have a look inside the content, and there's an animation here called hand under legs, so that's the animation that's been run when we sit on that one. Click on the stand button to unsit yourself on anything. One of the other things we covered was the day-night system within Second Life, remembering that we've got 3 hours daylight, then 1 hour night, and that runs obviously 6 times throughout a 24-hour period. Often we might want to set day as daylight when it's in the middle of the night, especially when we're doing things like building. It just makes things a little bit easier to see. So we can go up to the world menu, down to sun, and here we've got 4 main settings. Sunrise, so you can go up and have a look over there and see the sun rising up there. We can go midday, we can go sunset, or we can go midnight, and then you can go back to use region settings, which is basically the default settings. Individual sims are sometimes set to their own default settings using an environment editor, and we'll look at that later on in the course. We also talked about creating landmarks and setting your home place. So one of the things you can do, you've got to be a member of the group that owns the parcel. If you are, you can go up to world and you can go set home to here. So that would set your home to this area, this particular place that you're on at the moment. When you want to come home, you can either go straight down to here, world, teleport home, or Control Shift H, and that'll take you back to your set home. Let's just do a quick fly over to the other area that we visited, which is on the same island of Ko-Fi. And this was a Slens build project. So the other thing we can do is create landmarks of anywhere we go, so we can get back there later. So again, we'd go up to world and landmark this place. Slens Project Foundation Studies build. Close that, and we'll actually find it here in our Places tab. This is the Places tab over here. You might notice actually that I have quite a different layout than the default layout. That's because I have certain items that I use a lot, other items that I use shortcut keys to get to. So I have most of my tabs over on the right hand side and a few down the bottom, and that's about it, keeping my screen as uncluttered as I possibly can. So let's test the landmarks that we just made. Go up to world. Now I teleport home, I'm going to teleport to my build over on Koru, which is the island next to Ko-Fi. So I'm heading into a new region, my whole screen goes blank, and this is my workshop on the island of Koru, and that's next to Ko-Fi. Now let's say I wanted to go back to the build that we were just at, so I go into my places area, double click on that landmark there, it'll give me this little item. I always have this turned on just in case I click on the wrong thing. It gives me a second chance to save myself, and I'll teleport over there. The other thing you can do, which we didn't look at in particular, but you can actually save landmarks up in this area called the favorites bar, and they will end up at the top of your screen up here. So let's just go down, grab the Lens Project Foundation Studies build, drag it up the screen, and it's placed in here, and it now shows up here as well. If I go into the more of these, I've got the MUV601 meeting point, which is where our classes are held. And here we are back here again. Okay, that's the roundup for this week. There'll be more next week obviously, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday.